Okay, so in this video we're going to be taking a look at layering up some snares and claps. So this is very similar to the kick layering video that we did a while back, and similarly we're going to be giving away a snare layering rack with this one. So you can download that from our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/quantizecourses. So we're going to be layering up some snares and claps, trying out some different combinations with this loop. So let's have a look at the actual rack itself. I'm just going to solo it for a second. When you first load it up, you're going to be presented with this sample loading window, as well as your 8 macros, which will control various parameters we'll have a look at in a second. So the idea with this is to load a snare into the simpler that's held in this chain. So you click on the chain and you can see drop snare in this window. It's important to drop it into this window and not onto the actual chain itself, otherwise you start to overwrite some of the mappings and you'll lose some of the macro controls. So likewise, there's one each for 2 different claps as well. You don't have to stick strictly with this, you can drop in any samples you want, but this is the sort of intended purpose, if you like. So first parameter here is phase. Once we've got all of our samples in, it just really alters the way that the samples waveforms interact with one another. And slowly sweeping through this, you can sometimes find a sweet spot where it will sound better than it does at its default position to the far left. A lot of the time you won't even use this, but sometimes you might find there's a bit more weight or a bit more sort of whack to the samples. Next up is fizz. So this one's just going to give us a bit more top end. So have a listen to this. And I'll do that in context with everything else. Then we've got width, which predictably is going to make the sound that bit wider. And what this one's doing is it's widening the claps. It will leave the snare, however that is. Usually it's going to come fairly down the center depending on the sample that you've dropped in here. And as soon as you move this, it's going to get wide straight away. And then again, sweeping through will just change the way that width is working a little bit, and you might find that again you find a sweet spot with this. So let's have a quick listen. Now, one thing that you might find with this is as you crank this up, you can get a little bit of sort of smearing, if you like, of the transients. There's not quite as much bite in the sample overall. One thing you can use to combat that is the next parameter, the transient parameter. Again, whether you widen or not, this can be quite a cool one to use. So let's have a listen. This is just going to turn up really this sort of initial attack transient at the beginning of your snares and your claps. It will do the whole layer. And one of the cool things about this one is that as you turn it up, if you just have a look at the levels here for the snare and clap, you see they don't rise too much. So you can really emphasize that quite a lot whilst your track is playing without fear of pushing this particular fader into the red. The next one is the tail, so the other end of the sample, bringing up the overall the tail and the back end again of all of the different samples in the layer. Now, need to be really careful with this one because it's got a much wider range. It will turn the tails up that much louder, and that's just because you often find when you drop samples in that the tail can be really quiet on some of them. So I wanted to give a lot more range on that one, but subsequently keep it really careful. Keep your adjustments to a minimum and be careful with it. The samples that I've got in here at the moment, some of them have got massive tails on them already, hence me only needing to tweak that a tiny bit. Next up is thud. It's really just the opposite to the fizz one. We're going to get the kind of thunk where the stick hits the snare. That low mid area is going to be raised up. So I'll just play this one on its own. So you can hear it's very different controls. At first you think they're similar, but they're actually not. They are doing something very, very different. And then finally, it's just the snare and clap volume, so you can change the balance of the samples quite easily if you've got this mapped to a controller, for example. So just getting back to that width control, if we do push this wide, one thing that can just help to give the sample a bit more clarity and a bit more punch is to turn up the transient control and bring down the level of the claps a little bit. Okay, so they're the different parameters. Just as a quick run through, what I'm going to do is we'll just duplicate this across, and let's just throw in some new samples, see how we get on with something different so you can see it in action. Let's throw, yeah, one of these guys in, I think. And for the claps, I'm just going to throw a couple of these in. Let's not even listen to these. We'll just go for 1 and 2, see what we end up with. Works quite well straight off the bat. Now, one thing that's really nice about using Ableton Simpler is the fact that you've got this hot swap button. So if you're not happy with one of the samples, you can flick through them on the fly. So in this case, let's just see what happens if we choose a different snare. So I'm going to use this hot swap button. It's important to realize it's the one in the sample window, not the one for Simpler itself. Let's click on that, and then as it's playing back, I'm going to use the up and down arrows on my keyboard, plus press the enter key to actually load it into the Simpler window. So I quite like that. That's a bit different. And as I say, don't feel that you need to just stick with snares and claps. Any old samples could go in here and create something quite interesting. You never know. So that's the new rack. As I say, it's free for download from www.facebook.com/quantize courses. I hope you enjoy it. As always, any comments are very welcome. Take care.